There we
Okay,
go.
there
Now
we
we
go. All right.
broadcast.
Okay, appreciate it.
Webinars now broadcast.
Yes.
So I guess I don't know if we should start now. We should wait till
We can. I'm gonna try to share it. For some reason, whenever I share it, don't never work either. I don't know. It's the matrix.
Give people a few minutes before we begin.
Yep.
Let's say 3 people going. Who's the third person? It's just me and you.
No, I think on my timeline.
Somebody named Azara Yasharala is interesting. They were interesting. Anyway, yeah, it's just a.
Okay.
It's a. I don't know, man. I'd be vexed on this Facebook stuff, man. I'd be vexed, y'all. Anybody that's watching back right now, we still getting situated, waiting on people to come. But I just want to say I'd be vexed with this man and woman situation that we be having, man. It's like sometimes I wonder, like, I don't think a lot of us see it.
Right.
And I'd be like, man, I'd be wondering, like, am I like one of the only people that see it? And I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to feel like I'm one of the only people that see it. There go Isaiah. Shalom, shalom, Shabbat shalom, Achi. If you're there.
I think you got to unmute your own self, because I'm trying to unmute it.
You trying to unmute him?
Mm-hmm.
I did it already. Unmute audio.
Okay, you got it.
Well, it said I did it. I guess he might have to unmute himself. Like
you got to unmute yourself because your audio is There we go.
Oh, there he is. Yeah. Shalom,
okay.
Shalom.
Shalom.
It's a shame when you be close to the screen, you still be squinting. All right, hold on. I'm gonna try to share a few more places, then we can get started. I think I'll try that. Oh. Okay, so I think I finally figured out how to do it. What? Don't know what that means either.
Man, Isaiah, this is gonna be an interesting conversation, man. What you think?
I definitely think it is.
What do you think the reason is we not getting, enough participation in it? Do you think it's people really don't care? Or
I wouldn't say it's people. I wouldn't say it's that people don't care. I think people care a lot. I think, especially with topics like today, it's a hot button issue. You know what I mean? I think, for the most part, a lot of people, when you're doing platforms like this, especially ones where you could be seen, you know, you got to kind of lay on your sword where you stand. And a lot of people like to, ride the fence a little bit, or don't want to have an opinion or a stance on the situation. And when your face and everything is attached, sometimes that can be a little
right. That's a good point. That's a good point.
That's why we tell them they don't even have to come on. They can just, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Type it out.
I also think the time might be a little bit of a
issue.
Yeah, because we get on now. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. I have a few people I know, those that do keep the Sabbath on Shabbat. Right now, they'll be just getting in tune with, what various camps that they fellowship with, or they'll be getting in line with their fellowships or where they fellowship as we speak. So, you know what I mean? That depending on how one feels about congregating and their aspect of congregation, that can play effect. So,
right.
So I don't know, but it might be I don't know what the viewership is like with playbacks or anything, but
it's definitely higher than a live one.
Exactly. So, people might be going back and looking versus being live because of those issues. You know what I mean?
Do you think that Has that been the case, Tama? I haven't
Yeah,
checked it because I've been off. So it's like,
right.
they've been coming back and watching.
I think people do come back and watch it, and I think that's the same thing. Well, I mean, even when I was on the other radio station, like we didn't necessarily have a lot of people on. It depended on the artist. Like sometimes it was, you know what I'm saying. So it's just people are, uh, accessible when they're accessible. But it's, I think the ultimate goal is whoever will hear it, let them hear. Like we was just reading earlier about. Not to get too Bible-y, but we was just reading earlier about the
She
concept.
said Bible-y. Is that a word? Oh my goodness, Bible-y. I'm gonna use
Hey,
That's
that.
a word.
Tamar destroying the King's English. Oh,
Right.
oh, shit.
We were just talking earlier about the concept of a remnant, and we, I think it's just people. A lot of people probably are not ready. But first of all, people are suffering. I know that for a fact. Like a lot of
Yeah.
people
Oh
are
yeah.
suffering and crying to their girlfriends, which is what we said in the beginning. Like this platform was supposed to be a place where them sad conversations will be brought out into the open, but the conversation is still happening. So I think it's still good to still do it, and those that's gonna hear it, they're gonna hear it, and it may be a process of just putting suggestions out there. Like I watched the video the other day, real quick rant, forgive me. Watched the video the other day of some of a woman she's very firm in what she believed, and she said in her video that she's trying to get it to where she ain't the only person saying this ideology. She wants it to ripple throughout the community. So she is. I think she's fairly well known. So if she is thinking like that, I think that we all should be thinking like that. Whoever gonna get it, cool. But it ain't about saving nobody or nothing. It's just putting out other things because there's a lot of chatter online, period, or in the world. So if what we say can at least get people to think, because I don't necessarily think that what we are suggesting is the solution to everybody's problems, but it is an alternative. It's like if you turn the radio on, you hear music, but you don't necessarily hear the same type of music. You need diversity. So this is the same thing. Turn the radio on, turn the Facebook Live on. It's another alternative to the conversation that's going on. That's how I look at it. But I couldn't hear a lot of stuff for a long time. So I'm a living witness of somebody telling me stuff years ago, and me just not getting it. So.
Wow.
Okay. Glory. So,
All right.
yep. So we can get started. I'm just gonna read the little the little thing, and then if y'all are okay with it, just read a few definitions because like I told Shamal before we got on, I didn't even really, I hadn't necessarily really looked up none of these words before. Okay, so today's topic is gender stereotyping in the Black community, and of course, welcome everybody. Welcome. We've been off for a couple of weeks, but we pray everybody's enjoying this surge of warm weather. It's finally getting a little warm here in Ohio, so I've been sitting in my backyard, nodding off like an old person, and it's been great. I've been enjoying it. So it's okay. So catchphrases like toxic masculinity have flooded pop culture as accurate portrayals of manhood. But how real is this notion? Are gender stereotypes useful in defining the role of man and woman in the Black community? Where did these roles come from, and how do they impact our relationships and the expectations that come with intimate unions? So it's a lot of questions, but the topic again is gender stereotyping in the Black community, and people have been talking about toxic masculinity for a long time. Apparently, it's older than what we've been hearing. At least that's what I learned today, is that it's been around for a while. But I'm just gonna read one definition of it from the Good Men Project, which says that toxic masculinity is a narrow and repressive description of manhood, designating manhood as defined by balance, sex, status, and aggression. It's a cultural ideal of manliness where strength is everything, while emotions are a weakness, where sex and brutality are yardsticks by which men are measured, while supposedly feminine traits, which can range from emotional vulnerability to simply not being hypersexual, are the means by which your status as a man can be taken away. So that's what that is. And then I had looked up gender because I was telling Jamal, I don't know. I know gender is constantly changing with everything that's going on. But gender, again, this is according to, it's a website called Teacher Intolerance, but it just says gender is the state of being male or female. Gender also refers to the social roles, behaviors, and traits that a society may assign to men or to women. So I think they kind of all go, it's all the same thought process, right? So anyway, so I guess the first thing is to tackle the idea of toxic masculinity. Like, you guys are men. So what do y'all think? Like, what's the first thing that comes into your mind when you hear that?
Oh man.
Go ahead, you got it.
Okay.
I mean, I could go. I'm gonna go ahead. You got it.
I'm gonna be real quick.
Yeah.
This is so interesting, right?
You sound kind of low. Maybe it's me.
Low.
Might be me.
It's you. No, I'm playing. You know what? I got my headphones, my earbuds on. So that's
Should I put
why.
mine in? Maybe I should get mine.
Yeah, that's why I hear him so like it's crisp. I could hear him so crisply.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna do that. Go ahead. Go ahead, Isaiah. Sorry, y'all.
I just got these good headphones too. They were pretty expensive, so
They better work, right?
I will hope so. But what was I saying? Okay, so
Toxic masculinity.
Mm-hmm. Well, this hard. So when I think about it, I mean, we could break it down into what the two words are. Masculinity being kind of what Tamar touched on, and toxic being the negative aspect of that. I don't think there's anything wrong with a person, male, female, being I don't want to say masculine or feminine, or having traits that are identified as which, because we didn't get into gender stereotyping, which I think we should set a definition for that as well. But before we go there, being toxic is normally associated with negativity, something being done in excess, so when you to be short and sweet, I don't want to sound like I'm rambling. That's what I feel like.
Yeah, take your time. It's your floor. We good.
Being concise, toxic masculinity to me seems like a state of over-aggression.
Man.
And we see it in all communities, especially when dealing with pride and egos and things of that nature. If y'all don't mind, I just wanted to put this definition out there. This is according to United Nations Human Rights, which is a website here. It says a gender stereotype is a generalized view. Now I can't see.
Get close to the screen.
Perceptions about attributes or characteristics are the roles that ought to be perceived by or preferred by women and men. It says a gender stereotype is harmful when it limits women's or men's capacity to develop their personal abilities, to pursue their professional careers, and make choices about their lives.
Wow.
I think I like that that definition. I wanted to highlight it and kind of throw it out there, because I think when you think of toxic masculinity, I'm gonna go on a limb and say I think there should be a phrase called toxic femininity as well.
Yeah.
If I said that right or wrong.
Yeah.
I'm quite sure I get chopped up for speaking anyway.
You did. You kind of chopped it up a little bit, but I understand.
Thank you. I grew up in the urban areas where the King English was rarely spoken. But all in all, the ideal that limits someone from doing something, I think, is the nature behind it all, and that could be a feminine aspect or a masculine aspect. I think the fact that, as James Brown said, this is a man's world.
Right.
I think the fact that we kind of look through that lens dealing with everything we kind of get this bashing here, but I don't want to make this a man versus woman thing. Ideally, anybody portraying or having an attitude that kind of stifles out someone else's voice is ideally toxic.
Yeah.
I'm a rest on it.
All right. So for me, before I get started, I want to say we cannot leave out the last part. Hold on. I'm sorry. I was trying to see if my son was in there whining because he's taking his little nap right now.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? About to go ABBA mode on him. But
right.
what was I about to say? Oh, we can't leave out the rest of the song. When he said it's a man as well, but it won't be nothing without a woman or
Exactly.
girl. So you know, I like how he did it, but he was doing it for a specific reason.
Yeah.
But he was also letting us know that it has to be a balance. You know what I'm saying? That's why I think before I go into toxic masculinity, I really believe. Hold on one second, y'all. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Caleb, Caleb, lay down, take a nap. I'm in here, but go ahead, take a nap. Sorry, y'all. We came to visit his grandma. So, but anyway, toxic masculinity. I think that it is something that's missing. I think that today we took on the ways of the Europeans. It's nothing. I'm nothing against Europeans or anything like that, but I believe that the cultures are different. They operate differently. So when speaking of, hold on, take over, Tamar.
Yep.
Take over. I'll be right back.
Yep, no problem. Yep. So yeah, definitely the concept of we had talked about it before, taking over the concept of us learning about masculinity and femininity from other people. You know, I mean that's big. You know, I think we kind of talked about that before. I think what I would like to add as far as the whole, I actually like what you said, Isaiah, about the women. Those bad behaviors being prevalent in women too, and I think that hardly ever gets talked about. You know what I'm saying? And that might in fact fuel toxic masculinity even more. I'm sorry. Over to you.
All right. So I'm sorry. Appreciate you.
It's okay.
So I'm big on the culture.
I can't
One
see your
thing.
eyes. I just see your chest.
Oh, sorry.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm so tired. I'm in relaxed mode, chilling. And this is not my old room. He's in my old room. But anyway,
okay.
This is my brother's old room. I believe that culturally speaking, when y'all think of different cultures, you do notice how sometimes the man and woman in that culture operates differently from like a Western culture and an Eastern culture. We spoke on this a lot.
Right.
I feel like through the movements that had took place, and we have allowed those movements to saturate us. So our women have lost a lot of how do you say femininity?
Feminine.
Somebody help me out.
Feminine.
I can't even say it right. I hate these two words. No, but yeah, it's feminine.
Oh, femininity.
What am I trying to say?
Femininity.
There you go, femininity.
The word that I chopped up.
Oh my goodness. Yes, that you brutally destroy, and I came right behind you. So
and I think you dropped the bomb.
I don't like that word, but femininity. Yeah, femininity is lacking in our community. Everybody, it's like both men and women is displaying or demonstrating a lot of masculinity, and the men in the community are the masculine side of them is going down, and is due to other stuff. This is another topic, but I could fall without saying that, because when we say toxic masculinity, that can actually go both for man and woman, which it shouldn't. The masculine side should basically really be the male side, but as we can see, it's a lot of women that actually demonstrate that off actions and reactions. I will have to give examples to say that, to bring it up, but that'll be another topic. And then we see the men going into what y'all was speaking on, they exert more than what they should. That's where that toxic come in. You know what I'm saying? Is you don't have to. It's kind of like I think I said before. A lion doesn't have to say it's a lion, or cheetah or tiger, whatever animals. They don't have to. They just go off of their natural instinct and how they were organically function as. But we, on the other hand, we operate differently. I can prove that through the reality TV shows, how we act when you look at everyone else. I don't see heavy toxic masculinity in other cultures outside of us over here in this Western side. Now, I'm not talking about the Europeans. I'm talking about so-called black. And then when you look at so-called black in other countries, it doesn't seem to be how it is over here. And that's because of that's so I'm tying that into how the culture affects that toxic masculinity with us. We have brought and taken the ways of other a culture that ruled us. That's what last thing I'm gonna say. That's what More Zebulon was trying to bring out. You remember on the other platform, he was trying to bring out how we, the misogyny, or however you say that, misogyny, all that, we actually took that from a European aspect view, and now we're being that towards our own women.
Yeah, so I have a question. And Shema, your camera is like shaking a little bit.
Okay. My bad.
Now you're being ridiculous. And I'm only saying that for the playback. That's all. Okay, you understand what I'm saying? Okay, my bad. I have a question to both of y'all about like what's masculine. You know, what does it mean to, like, what's a masculine characteristic? I'm not saying one thing, but what, like, if you could define masculinity and femininity, like, what do they look like? And I'm just asking because I'm curious.
Exactly. I was going to actually double and ask that same question.
Yeah.
Because in truth, and this is where it gets weird for me, because you guys know, I hope to pursue a career dealing with the psycho and psychology and everything.
Sorry.
So when looking
dealing with the what? I didn't hear that
dealing
part.
with psychology.
Okay,
and,
cool.
You know, the mental aspect of things. So that's a hard question to kind of answer. So putting my taking that hat off and kind of putting my layman's hat on, you can kind of sum it up between culturally what pertains to a man or a boy, or what pertains to a woman or a girl, and kind of set those things up. But then, that is real narrow and real blanketed, and I think at times a lot of things can cross. Like, for instance, I'll give you a perfect example. Probably not a perfect example. I'll give you an example. Growing up in a household where, I don't want to say my father wasn't around, but we did that discussion already. My mom's was kind of the ideal head of household. And for me, a lot of aspects that she played, she kind of had to wear both hats. So, she was more, I guess, ideally with masculine would be, I guess, kind of how we portray masculine as far as doing things that we see or that we attribute culturally to men. As far as the disciplinary things, not saying women can't be disciplinary leaders or have those type of standings, but she would do that. Without going into great detail. And she would also have to come in and add a nurturing effect. Not saying men can't be nurturers, like kind of like how you touched on earlier, Tamar, as far as it's kind of that weird stance, because I don't want to say you want to walk in a gray area, but I think these are one of those topics that kind of reside in that gray area. and depending on circumstances, you know, people have to kind of teeter and totter between, without throwing limitations there. And I know from a biblical standpoint, we kind of look at it as this is what the man does and this is what the woman does. So
Right.
without answering the question with the question, I'm going to throw that one back to you guys and see what you guys provide.
Well, I got something for it. I think that we have taken language and I was about to say appropriated it, attributed to living and flesh and breathing human beings. I think that both of y'all and most who's probably watching this are right from a standpoint. I don't believe that we actually should attach masculinity and femininity, I hate that word, to people. Only reason I responded to it was due to the topic and due to what the definition is. But I think that was really like masculine, feminine was attributed to language, if I'm not mistaken, speaking on like the Hebrew language, and then we associated or personified it. No, not personified it, but associated it with us because, like he said, like I'll show you this definition real quick. Masculinity.
Why you getting that out?
When you look it up, I got it already.
Oh,
yeah, it says, and this is what the problem is right here. It says this is the noun qualities. This is just dictionary qualities or attributes regarded as characteristics of men. Handsome, muscled, and driven. He's a prime example of masculinity. Synonyms are virility, manliness, maleness, vigor, strength, muscularity, ruggedness, toughness, robustness. But women are that too. I think that the 100% masculinity is attributed to a man, and the 100% femininity, whatever, is attributed to the woman. But I think both of us have both within us. So when you brought out, what is the topic again? I'm sorry. When you brought up toxic masculinity, initially, automatically, people are going to think it's specifically speaking of male.
Right.
Based off the title.
Right.
But someone like myself, I would say it's really both, because when I look at women and men today, that's why I brought that up earlier. I see it in both. I see it in both. I'm like, dude, you know, it's overshadowing. That's what I think the problem is. If a man, this is the last thing I'm gonna say, and I'll let him come in, I'll let you come in. I think it's supposed to be a balance. I think we both supposed to have both qualities within us. But I do believe perhaps the male should have a little more here and the woman should have a little more here. And if one of us are demonstrating the opposite more, especially in a negative way, I think that's a piece, perhaps, where toxic can be applied to either one of them. And with that, I yield for now.
All right. I'm just going to say something quick, because you said what I wanted to say just a little better. So thank you for that.
Man, no, come on, man.
Just what you even attached to with language. I'm gonna have to go back to grade school on this one, and I don't know how it is for other coaches. I like looking at other coaches, but I don't know other coaches that well. So viewers, if y'all out there, go ahead and throw a correction in if y'all feel it. But when back when we were learning Spanish, right? It was like I don't know if they called them prefixes, I can't remember. But the ending of a word and the beginning of the word, especially the beginning, you will have like los, or las, or la, or something like that, which attributed to whether you were speaking in reference of a male or a woman. I like that you added that, because you see the same thing with most other languages, including Hebrew. And, you know, depending on if you're talking to a male or if you're talking to a woman, you would throw maybe an A at the end, or a feminine character at the end or in the beginning of the word to kind of set the narrative there. But the word itself, or the definition, or the root behind the word, was form-fitting as far as it just was that word and that aspect of it. But when it was used for a male, it would have had this, or if it was used for a woman, it would have that. But ideally, either party could portray whatever that definition was. So if we're talking about being a provider, we have males that can be providers and women that can be providers as well. Definition of provider doesn't change, but depending on which aspect or which way we're looking at it, or who we are attributing it to, that's when we throw that character on there. So I guess to provide context for other people or the outsiders looking in. I like that you stated it that way, because it covers that gray area. So this is what we're dealing with, and depending on who we're dealing with, we can put whatever there is there. Also, looking at the words itself and their structure, masculinity and feminine, whatever. I'm not even going to myself. But
that word is horrible. I'm
exactly.
sorry, I can't get it, man.
Femininity. There we go. That's how I'm gonna say it. So, the feminine, of course, the root behind it is female, which is attributed to a woman. But then again, we have to look at which I don't know if we're going to get into, but the biological ramifications, or even just the way we're built as far as men and women. Not saying that one could be more than another, but when you're looking at quote unquote feminine traits, those are also traits that are usually associated with being a woman itself. You know what I mean? And I don't know, that might be something we can adjust. I don't want to make this show too science esque and start dealing with biology and stuff like that, because I barely passed it in high school. But but ideally, I think those are also realms that we have to step into when dealing with this topic, like nurturing and those type of things. When we look at the animal kingdom, I'll give you a perfect example. You mentioned lions. When we look at the animal kingdom and we look at lions, when it comes to actually taking care of the cubs, we see the female lion play a large part in it. But also what many people don't realize, and I learned this from watching some TV show about lions and stuff like that, females ideally do the majority of the hunting.
Yep.
When it comes to lions. And you would normally, looking at it from, I guess,
a human standpoint.
Yeah, hunting to be a man thing, right? That would be a masculine thing, quote unquote. But the female lions are the ones that's going out and grabbing the food. But then again, while the female lions are hunting and separating the food or whatever, the male lions are there as well to provide protection.
Right.
And they usually circle the female lions while they're hunting and lay a perimeter. So both things we see, the thing that we can see from that is balance. And I think ultimately when we deal with solutions, that's kind of what we're going to drive to. Because I seen something, and Shema, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You the language guy. When looking at the characters that create the word for God, right? Isn't it both feminine and masculine characters in it, the way it's written or something like that? I heard that somewhere. I don't want to say that's true.
Like Elohim?
Yeah.
Elohim is I think it's masculine plural.
Right.
I don't know if it's feminine in there. I'll check right now for you, but I know it's definitely plural. It can be singular depending on the context, but it shows a duality in there. So I think that's where you was going with it. It's a duality function behind it.
Right.
And that's why I wanted to jump in and say too, like when you think of what you was just bringing out, it's like a woman and a man are a provider, but we put so much emphasis on the man being the provider, but the woman actually also provides love, provides protection for the children as well, provides protection for their husband as well too. So that's why I say it's both. But I think it's just to differentiate kind of what you were bringing out. That's why I believe that they put so much emphasis on masculine man, feminine woman. So, Tatum, I don't know if you want to jump in and.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to know, like, where does that come from then? I mean, because I agree with y'all. I think I agree with you. I think I've learned to come to that point. I don't think it's a natural thing. Because even, people always often talk about when you first have children, some people are like, oh, I'm going to raise them in a gender neutral environment. Like, don't give them pink clothes, give them gray clothes, or whatever people say, as a neutral thing. But we teach our children to push toward a certain type of play and behavior. And I think that people consciously go against that. So I'm just curious as to where they even come from, where the masculine male is aggressive or strong or rugged. I think that's a funny word, How do we get to that point, and how do we get to the woman being demure and gentle and quiet and whatever, So I don't know the answer to it, but I find that fascinating, that whether these terms even come from, because I think that they are not biblical constructs. They exist, like there, but back to what you were saying earlier, I think even if these, we always talking, I was thinking social constructs, so all stuff is a social construct, but even now, even with those social constructs being the foundation of how we live right now, how we perceive the world, you still don't see people doing that, because now you got super feminine dudes, like I'm saying, really emotional men, and really aggressive. Just the other day, I was quick story. I was at the basketball court with my sons last Sunday, and we went up there, and then a couple. You can't hoop. Please, I dunk on all y'all. Don't play with me. I dunk on everybody. I dunk on everybody watching. What you got? But don't play with me. No. But we went to the court, and it was just me and them, and then some other little boys came. So that was cool. And then it didn't get messed up until the young women came. And they came, and when they came as a group, and they was cussing each other out. Well, no, they were cursing really, really loudly. And their whole conversation was about how he was going to F some other little girl up. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I mean, I had to whisper to my kids. Like, I'm like, you don't want to get a girl like that. You know what I'm saying? So now I have to teach my sons and remind them, because I've been telling them this for years, I have to remind them that that's not what a woman looks like. So even though I believe in us filling in the gap for each other, like I feel like as a mother, I don't think I'm aggressive, but when it comes to my kids, I feel my spirit rising up. Right. Like, so I can see how we both have both parts of those qualities. But so I guess that's a long answer. So what do y'all know where all that stuff came from?
I believe real quick, and this is why I bring this out. I ain't gonna say teach, because I never really call myself that. Right. I would say that when you think of like the Tanakh or the Torah, before all this stuff was written out, some people will equate God to like nature.
Oh, okay.
Some people will equate the Most High to nature, because he is, or it is, all. And if you look at nature, nature itself is a teacher. I'm talking about from plants to animals to things of that nature. And I can only imagine that those that kind of was the foundation of all our understanding outside of what we believe our understanding coming from Yah, looked at nature around us to come up with these things. Like when you look at animals, you see how animals are towards the babies. You see how the mothers are towards the babies. You say, okay, that's, if you was to equate that to femininity trait, you will see that she's more nurturing than that father was. That father was kind of more tough with the child. So that teaching, I think a lot of our teachings, although it comes from, our ancestors and stuff like that, but I think those that was before us that brought forth the teaching to us learned from nature. That's just my take. I mean, they could have learned from God, but I believe God is the person that orchestrated nature. So we're learning from nature. So I believe that that's where it all came from. I believe that that mindset that we have, that this is a man, this is a woman, this is kind of the characteristics of it. It comes from nature. I don't know if y'all ever heard anybody say that.
I haven't. No, that's interesting.
If you didn't, that's me then.
All right. Can I? You go put it on the shirt. I stated this first.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a piggyback off of what you were saying. I want to say nature and tendencies. Looking at socialization of where we are today. I think these things change depending on the culture, and the way we interact with each other. And I think before I even go there, we're looking at where this thing started. I would say the masculine and feminine thing kind of is a portrayal of what we're naturally good at. So like how you said, dealing with nature. Let's look at this thing and going back to biology. I'm sorry, but look at this thing based off of what men and women are naturally built to do.
Oh, you finna get beat up.
I am. This is
watch yourself, young man. Watch yourself, young man.
And
see that brought that up.
This is where I said, we on camera. We on these things last forever. We got to be prepared to stand for what we do. All right, but I'm gonna take a shot at it. I might get stabbed. If y'all don't hear from me no more, just know that there was a bunch of women and men out there that was ready to jump me after it. But biologically speaking,
did he just stutter? Did he just? Did I hear a stutter, y'all?
Biologically speaking, men produce more muscle, right, than women. So maybe that's where some of those generalized rules came from and kind of metamorphed. Even again going back to like the animal kingdom. Although we see aspects where these men, these animals, these male animals and female animals tend to do things. We see when a hen lays her eggs. That's when they lay the eggs, right? The chicken.
I think so.
Whatever. So when the chicken lays the egg, she sits on that egg. But then you have other birds that like penguins, and the penguins take the egg. So I don't know. It's hard. I think we do bio genetically what we kind of are born into. That's kind of the roles we take, and then I think there are stereotypes and other roles in society kind of dictated that the ebb and flow of those things. So it probably started off as in, men are, I don't want to say naturally strong, because I know some women that lift way more than I ever could. But
no, you're not wrong in that though. Men are, and this I don't care about getting stabbed. I'm a personal trainer. I'm a personal trainer, so I know for a fact men are naturally stronger. That's a fact. It could be the skinniest man and the most like heavier set woman, and that skinny man is stronger just by his makeup. That's it. So there's nothing wrong with saying that. If it's a woman that's stronger, 9 times out of 10 she has been training to be it for years, or taking some stuff. Because I know some women that take some male enhancing pills. Yeah, bodybuilders. So, or she just been training for years. I know another woman that named Brittany Ramsey. She's strong, squats, bench press, all that, and she's natural though. But she's been doing it for 15 years.
Right.
So she's stronger in certain things, but from a standpoint of naturally,
Right.
all across the board, that is a fact. It is no way around it. And women that's listening, you can't get upset with me saying that, because
it's been shown scientifically as well.
But I will say this: their strength that out strengthens us when it comes to body is giving birth.
Oh,
so
right. How you a baby? I dare you, do it now.
Right. So it's different strengths. That's why I had to talk about that with somebody a while ago, and I was like, we got to stop comparing and competing.
Right.
We have, you know what I'm saying? And I know you wasn't trying to say that, Aki. I know you was just bringing out a biological overall standpoint of strength when it comes to legs, arms, shoulders, back, whatever, you know. But their massive strength to me is that childbirth. I don't think a man could ever do that, because they wasn't designed to do that. So when we go into, what was you about to say?
I want to add to your point. That's definitely true, and it's been some studies. I wish I would have got these statistics ready. We saying all the hard words today. I wish I would have got these statistics ready for this show. But you're right. When it comes to pain endorphins and things like that, it's been shown that women have higher levels. So women are able to deal with higher levels of pain than men are. Also, I found studies. It's funny because you know the saying, when a man catch a cold, then they have, like, you know, little funny memes that represent it, and then they say versus one woman gets sick or whatever. But I've heard higher levels of estrogen, and somebody please do a more exact and concise study than I did, because I just looked at some information. But estrogen levels play a big part in your immune system, and it's been shown in the study that I looked at. It was shown to kind of help women get through some of the ailments and things that are in disease that strikes us, which is a boost for them. You know, we produce more testosterone than estrogen, and that might be another component to this feminine and masculine thing as well.
Yeah, I think that all these people, all of the things that they came up with, I don't think is wrong. I feel like when dealing with, going back to the topic, the toxic masculinity, that is stemmed from conditioning of cultures. But if we're going into straight biology and how do they come up with who's feminine, who's masculine, I think that's a natural and an exact placement. Because even when you talk about lions, and they say, well, you know, men are supposed to be the ones that really go out to get the food, but we know women do all that. It's still doing his right part, because what he does is he protects the pride. It's still like that. That happens with the gorilla, when the gorillas, who protects the whole, it's the male. You know, in that sense, from a physical protection thing. Now, we do have instances to where, you know, the female lions beat up the male. I saw a video of that, by the way. He wasn't doing what he was supposed to do or something. Right. But for the most part, on a wide scale, because that's how I'm looking at everything, on a wide scale, you was bringing out animals. It's a similar operation. Right. It's a similar male female operation. It is how do you say that? Something of the rules, exceptions of the rules. But for the most part, across the board, and that's how I believe we established these things as humans. We saw how nature functioned. We saw how other animals function. We saw, this is not no study I did. This is just an observation that you know, and that's what I believe happened. Whether you believe God showed them, you know, or whether you believe God used things to show them. That's how I believe we came up with it.
There's a scripture that comes to mind. I'm sorry, Tim. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna add quickly to the animal thing, talking about animals, because I have I've been obsessed with this nest that's in my backyard for the past few weeks, and I've never paid. I grew up in the city, so I wasn't looking at birds growing up, but where I live now, my backyard, there's a nest in the back of my house, and I've watched these babies. I guess it's been like 3 weeks now, but I've watched them grow to the point now where they're like teenagers. They in the nest now. It's cramped. But what's interesting about the observation is initially I thought it was the woman that was bringing them, that was sitting on the eggs. I think I initially was like, okay, the mama sitting on the eggs. And then I was making fun of the bird to my middle son because I was like, oh, she's like a deadbeat mama. She'll like be there for a little bit and then she'll leave and then she'll come back. Then he texted me one day and was like, no, mommy, the father is, or the baby daddy's around. I know who's joking around. He said, baby daddy came back and gave her food, blah, blah. So anyway, so witnessing all of that, I learned that it's two of them. Because at first I didn't see the other one. I only saw her. And then, so back to your notion about creation teaching us, creation is ground zero. You know, we have added on to this thing, you know what I'm saying? But with creation in its natural state, you do see the duality of them doing, they have different roles because obviously I think the woman is there to sit on the eggs and hatch them and all that. But once the babies are alive, both mama and daddy, I'm talking about one Friday, I think it was a Friday night or Friday afternoon, and then the Saturday, they was going back and forth. Them kids was never full. So the daddy would go, the mama would give them some worms, and then the daddy would be doing his job. So they was like going back and forth and taking turns and doing it. And so one thing I will say about creation, whatever we think the source is, and comparing it to ourselves, you don't see creation necessarily. I'm not saying I know it creation, but seeing them competing for the roles or trying to be trying to one up them. It wasn't like the daddy was like, oh, I'm gonna come back with 10 worms and you only got one. Ha ha ha, I'm a man. So you see stuff like that, which is toxic masculinity, or vice versa. If the woman was like that, if the woman was like, what you over here for? We don't need you no more. We good. You know, you don't see the animals doing that. But we do that, which is a learned behavior, you know. And I think I will say this too, and I don't know if this is necessarily true, but I think about the benefit of having these gender stereotypes. Because we're talking about gender stereotypes, not necessarily reality, but perceived reality. There's a benefit to labeling people. The same way during the eugenics movement, there was a benefit behind labeling the so-called black man is XYZ, or the so-called white man is blah, 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 or the Asian man is blah, blah, blah. It's a benefit to that in order to push power and to push a certain agenda in order to push through what somebody wants to happen. So I'm imagining the same thing is happening now, even with these different, and again, society continues to change. So this whole idea of gender is really weird now. And because I believe what I believe, so I'm not gonna apologize for saying weird, but everything is constantly changing so that we don't necessarily see the bad part that's happening to us. So it's cool that people believe what they believe, but at the root of it, now you have a whole bunch of confusion. Now it's just arguing back and forth. And people, I feel like it's going to be harder to get back to the beginning if we are constantly confused about what is. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know, but I do think that those stereotypes have a purpose, and I see those stereotypes, and I'm saying at least in the black community, and I'm saying even in the Hebrew community, those stereotypes are for a purpose. It's not just some random thought, and I think that is where the issue it's problematic, because I see people suffering as a result of those men and women suffering because of those stereotypes. So anyway, that's what I'm saying.
And we don't know how to get back to it, and that's why I say. That's why I say I'm actually putting this in that man versus women war about nature. And it's funny you brought up the birds thing, because I don't know if you saw about a month ago, both of y'all, I put a post up of my new neighbors.
Yeah, it was the same time I found out I had some. Yeah,
it's some birds living right on my air conditioning unit. You know what I'm saying? And that little dad at first was eyeing me down on I'm on the balcony. He was eyeing me down. He sat there for about 2 minutes. Looking at me, and then he started flying back and forth, getting the sticks and making a nest. And then I'm looking, I see the mother or the woman or whatever, you know what I'm trying to say, sitting right there chilling. I don't know what they're getting prepared for, but what I want to say is that's why I really don't knock like the Nation of Islam or the Jewish community, like the European Jewish community, or people like that, because what they're trying to do, it might seem like they're trying to give rules and stuff like that. I don't think they are fully. I think it is some that's doing it foul, like a foul way. But the ones that's sincere about it, I think they see something, and kind of what we're speaking of now. I see they're trying to base it off just a natural organic thing. And the only way we're going to get back to how, you know, in a way to where we'll thrive is if we can learn from nature. If we can learn from these other animals, man. And I know this sounds weird because it's like, dude, you know, you're supposed to be Taurus. I am. But I look at, if you look, watch this, last thing I'm going to say. I can point out a few particular scriptures that when the Most High is trying to give you an example, what does he use?
Creation.
He used creation. He used animals. He used
All the
ants.
time.
He used
Yeah.
doves.
All the
So
time.
I'm doing the same thing right now.
Yep.
I'm not going against Torah.
Right,
I'm
right,
literally
right,
saying
right.
creation is the key for us to get back. And until we could get back to creation, I'm not talking about, I don't know what people say, oh, you witchcraft. No. I'm literally saying the examples that Isaiah and Tamar just brought out with these, we're not competing. We don't see animals competing.
Right.
It's like they just know.
Yeah, man.
But we can't do that because guess what? We the real animals.
Say that.
Boom.
Yep.
Hey, y'all, two things, man. Y'all both inspired this thought. Two things. So, and I know I'm using this out of context, so you know, people who know the Bible really, really well don't hold me, because the point is not the context that it was used biblically, but just the overall view. We have the scripture. We have scriptures that directly talk about us looking at creation and following what they do. I believe it's Proverbs, and either one of y'all correct me. I want to say Proverbs, maybe chapter 6 or something. I should go and look it up. But where it says, you know, look at the ant or watch the ant, something like that. You know, we can learn this creation. We can learn from, and I think that's the point that y'all are trying to make. And it's interesting that we talk about the whole aspect of competing, because I think socially, I think we've kind of walked into that. I don't think that's where it originally. I don't think that was our original kind of ideal towards men and women. I'm only speaking solely about the so-called Black community and other minorities in America. And you can include the white community as well, the European, Caucasian communities, because we see that socially now we have been driven to this men against women narrative, or this men make more than women, and you know, some of these hot topic big buzzers out there. And when you look at things from a religious standpoint, or even from, you know, going back in the day, I don't think that level of competing, or I have to do better than you, was there. It was kind of creating cohesiveness in the unit, or that family, or whatever you want to subscribe as a family, that grouping. I was actually having an interesting conversation. This is one thing I like about working at my job. You meet so many different people, and you get to interact. And of course, me being who I am, I don't shy away from some of the harder topics. So we had a chance. This was a Jewish young kid, about maybe 15 or 16 years old. But he had asked me a question about Black Lives Matter, and what was my stance. And we talked about that, and you said, you know, let me ask you an equally heavier question. And I wanted to know, you know, since we have a lot of these feminist movements, you know, kind of reshaping and taking away again, kind of reminds me of what was going on shortly after World War II and World War One, where we seen kind of the woman entering into the workforce and eventually getting the right to vote. You know, milestones that I don't think were necessarily a negative thing, but I think the way society kind of shaped it turned it into a negative conversation. But so anyway, so I was asking him, you know, within the understanding of society for his community of people, what is the role of men and women referring to teaching? And
And he's 15, right? 15, 16,
he's
right?
15, 16 years old, young guy, young guy.
But they studied up by then, though. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, they studied up by then.
He, I like the way he layered this question, the answer. I like the way he layered this answer. So I asked him, because in the community there's a narrative that women can't teach or women can't do certain things pertaining to biblical studies, right? Women can't lead a congregation, etc., etc. Now we both talk about Hebraic cultures as far as how we see it from a Torah standpoint, and of course, they have some other texts that they look at. So he would bring the narrative of those in. So I asked him, what place do your studies and understanding have for women? And he said, first thing he said was, well, we see a lot of different things across the Jewish community relating to women. In some cases, we have seen situations where women have stood up and kind of took the initiative and the charge, and even have not necessarily sat in a position of a rabbi, but kind of led from that position. And I have brought up, and he said there was even some cases where women just naturally took the lead where men have fallen short. So I was like, oh, interesting. Now I told him to elaborate more, and he had said basically when it comes to teaching, ideally within his circle or his understanding of the way that his family does it and the way that he's taught, culturally, women don't stand, I guess, in front of a congregation, but they are sanctioned to teach, and they just teach in different ways. He said men kind of deal with the more concrete, if I will, standpoint of the law. So, he brought up circumcision as an example. So men deal with the teaching and understanding of circumcision because it has to deal with the male's part, right? And he said women deal with things on the aspect of the nurturing, the loving, the spiritual implications. But he said, at all, there has to be balance. And he said, both come together. And he said, that doesn't mean that if, let's say, my mom seen something in the law and said, this is what you do, this is what you don't do, there'd be a problem with that. Because ideally, you have to listen to whoever your elders are. But
Right.
The women teach from the spiritual standpoint are the implications of the law and how it manifests internally. And the male are the men leaders in their organization teach from a standpoint of the more exact. So, if I will, I guess he was kind of saying, the men say, okay, this is what you do, the do's and the don'ts, and a woman kind of go in and throw the practicality. And he was like, as a whole, the ideal is balance.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's a good way to put it. It's interesting that he mentioned that because I didn't think that was his answer. He said, in some cases he has had, women kind of explain the law and teach in ways where he was able to better grasp, and again, that kind of helped him, or what he feels is walking closer to Torah. And I was like, wow.
And he's 15, by the way.
15 years old. It might be younger than that. Either, I believe 15, 16. I definitely know he's not an adult. And I was like, that's a profound statement, very big insight for someone so young. But
that's how they brought up. They brought up from the start. I'm talking about 5, 6, learning these things, man. That we ain't teaching our children. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. Oh, well, I was just gonna. Are you done, Isaiah?
No, you can go ahead. I'm trying to figure out if we're having a power out over here.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it's funny you just saying that. I went to a Messianic synagogue like months ago, and I just thought about it just now. It was a woman that got on up there. It was the main dude the main rabbi is a guy, but it was and I'm saying it was a black woman that did it one time, and there was one time I think it was a white woman. I don't know, but that was the first time I ever seen that, where it was a Shabbat gathering, and then there was the brother was doing the thing. Then they brought up a woman who was, and I forgot what she was reading. I don't know, but yeah, so that does happen, I guess, whatever. But yeah, and I think that what they was talking about, I don't think that there was no difference in what I understood from what they were saying, but I found it fascinating. I was like kind of like shocked that I was like, a woman. Oh my God. Reading the Bible in front of everybody. Nobody has a stone in their hand. Oh my goodness, what's going to happen? And they was that's good. That's good. I appreciate that. I actually wanted to go to the next part, if y'all don't mind.
Yeah, let's get it.
Relationships. So so with these stereotypes, how do they impact our relationships as far as expectations?
Oh man, wow.
Yeah, I think we talk a lot about.
That's a big one.
Yeah, about masculinity, femininity, and so going back to the practical. Thank you, Isaiah. The practical implications of these things. I guess I would say, what did you initially think, both of you all, when you were younger, before you started dealing with women in a, I don't want to say romantic, I don't know what the other word, intimate, I don't know. That sounds freaky, but what did you?
No, intimate is good.
Is intimate good? Okay.
So we understand what intimate.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to be offensive, but what was your initial idea of your role as a man when it came to engaging women in intimate relationships, and what did you expect her to exhibit just in the initial like flirting, whatever stage?
I'm going to answer this. I'm going to take a stab at answering this, if you don't mind, Shamal, in a layered aspect. So when I was younger, again, my mother was, I want to say rough around the edges, put it nicely. My mom was rough around the edges. She did everything from, reshingling the roof. Matter of fact, according to the story, I don't know if this is true or not, the reason why I was born early was because she was out on a ladder tacking up lines for hanging clothes. And fell. This is what was that? About 6.5 months, 6 or so months pregnant, 7 months pregnant. Out there moving, you know what I mean? So looking at her, naturally, she wasn't my only ideal of what a woman was, but she was the first ideal of what a woman was. And it was always a sense of tough love, but still a sense of, she had a nurturing vibe about it. And I kind of started to understand that more as I grew up. But she would always tell me certain things as far as you being a boy and a man, your job is to protect and care for the woman in your life. And she stressed it at some point. She also told me, especially when it came to fighting, that she would kick my butt if she ever seen me run away from another man. And kind of to stand your ground. So ideally, not that she wanted me to be a tough guy, because she ain't have no causing trouble stuff. That was out. But she wanted me to know that it was my position to kind of take the lead, but do it without being stifled. And that was some things that she would tell me. So romantically speaking and looking into things, I had people like my uncle around who would tell me, never hit a woman. Use restraint when dealing with a woman. Understand, help protect and nurture, but never make their voice obsolete. So I always had these kind of things kind of ringing in the back of my head.
That's that new age stuff. That's the young people stuff.
No, but I mean, the people, I had a lot of old heads around me. I hung with a lot of
Okay.
super grown-ups, like, people, 40s, 50s, and up type of
Right.
thing. I was
Right.
raised primarily by my grandmother.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I've always had that older person's voice ringing in my head. Even when hanging out with my friends, I often got called grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, ideally, that was kind of what the narrative was. But what I seen outside was completely different. A lot of cases, I've seen, especially the area that I grew up, women who work certain lifestyles that aren't necessarily beneficial or popular, or good in a sense. Women doing a lot of things to kind of get what they needed, and as a result of that, I seen them treated poorly, and that's when people will kind of swoop in and say, "You see that? Don't do that." Be the opposite of that. So when you ask, romantically speaking, ideally, I'm not going to say that necessarily happens all the time with me per se, but I try to come from a neutral standpoint, or what's more conducive for the family, instead of it's what I say type of thing, or it's my way or the highway type of thing. But I'm not going to say I'm purely exonerated from being selfish. I have displayed selfish tendencies before, but I think I was always raised with understanding that the reason why my mom was so tough was because she kind of wanted me to understand that I could be tough, but also be tough, not be a punk, as they say. I can't, certain words I can't use on this platform, but do that while understanding that you can have a nurturing aspect about you. I kind of am happy that I was able to kind of see that from my mom's, because like it seemed like she did a good job at giving me both sides of the fence, but she didn't shy away from the reason why that was done. So I never really bashed my pops,
Right.
but she also told me, because this is our living situation, I have to do these things. Not saying that you have to do these things, but understand this. And I kind of grasped that as I got older. I yield there. I'll be talking for hours.
No, I appreciate that.
All right, so what was the exact question again, so I
The
can make
question,
sure?
the question was, when you first started dating, what was your idea of what your role was as a man, and what did you expect the woman to be like? When you was out there choosing. I know what that. I know, you know what that word mean, don't you, Shema? When you was choosing.
Oh, dang. I don't think I
Y'all
actually.
still say that word out
She
no?
she 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 funny. She put her face close to the screen with that too. Hilarious. Um, I mean, it's hard for me to answer that question now because like what I know now, like I'm
Right.
about balance and things like that. But
Right.
back then, I didn't really have great examples, so I really didn't know. I kind of winged it based upon my understanding. But the crazy thing about it is, and I don't really speak like this, but I really feel like, aside from not knowing how to deal with certain things that took place, as far as like if things wasn't going what I would have expected it to go, especially knowing that it should have, I shut down a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And then when it did happen, because I knew when it did happen the way I knew it was gonna happen, then I'm like, see, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, so what I'm trying to say is, I really didn't have an expectation. It was more so just winging. Um, but it was according to what I believe we should have been like, still loving, still respectful. I've always been on the respect thing, but it's kind of hard to go into something with an expectation without knowing what the other person's expectation is. And according to what they believe a man should be, just like according to what you believe a woman should be.
Right.
So that is what I believe most of us mess up at. And I hope I ain't going off topic of the question, but I just couldn't, it's hard for me to have that or say that or bring it out when I didn't even understand, or that person didn't understand what their expectation was because they was young. We was young.
Mm.
When you in your early 20s, to me, you still don't know. It's some that might know. It's some that might know, and it's very rare. I say like one out of every 500 people, depending on how they've been taught. But a lot of us in our community, we have broken homes. So in your early 20s, you don't really know unless you are striving to find out, to compare and contrast other ethnicities and see how they function in the family function. If you're not doing none of that, and then seeing the downfalls of your own community and stuff, if you're not doing all that, you're winging it. Especially if you're in a broken home, you're winging it unless you do those things I mentioned, and you're not, and you're liable to fail, statistically speaking, or be unhappy if you decide to stay regardless and don't want to get a divorce and things like that. You're going to be unhappy. You might go cheat. You might get cheated on. If you don't attack these situations or these things, then you are ignorant too. So I just went elsewhere with that question, but hopefully I said something that somebody grasp from it.
No, I was just that's good. I was asking that question because I think that when I was young, I think I always talk about my father. I had a good daddy. My daddy was amazing. You know what I'm saying? And at least from my standpoint, but he was very nurturing. He was a hardworking man. He was a blue collar man, hardworking, had several jobs, but still took time out for me and my brother to like set aside a day for us to go skating. Sunday was skating. You know what I'm saying? So when I think my idea of man.
She lying, yeah.
I wish I would go skating. Now my ankles probably be hurting if I went skating now. But I remember stuff like that, and he was very trustworthy, right? So a lot of things that you wouldn't tell your father you did, I told him. He was the first person I told I did. So we had a really open relationship. He was always really open about taboo subjects, so I never felt awkward talking to him, or he never felt awkward talking to us. So anyway, so in a lot of ways, that was my initial idea of a man. But the people that I chose were not that. So that's why I'm asking that question, because I still had an idea in my mind, even though I had, contrary to I think to either of your stories, I had an example of that, and I still chose other stuff. And I think half of me thinks I chose that because I was intrigued by it, you know what I'm saying, the ultra masculine, and not necessarily the big rugged dudes, but I've been attracted to loud aggressive men, and that's a fact, you know. And I think that what I thought about them was that they were assertive or bold or whatever, but they were extreme examples of that. And then the other flip side could have been perhaps me looking at them as, I'm going to be the one that softens you up, or I'm going to be the one that makes it all better. So not just necessarily what I expect, but how I can help in this. So I think I always knew that it was I think yesterday, me and Isaiah was talking about the concept of, well, other day I was thinking about opposites attract. They say, you know, opposites attract, whatever. But then yesterday we was talking about it. He brought it up, whatever. But I said it was interesting because I was just thinking about that. And in my mind, opposites attract don't necessarily mean, I'm not sure how the world looks at it, but my concept of opposites attract is that it's things about you that are reflective of me. And so when I see them, so I'm not going to necessarily deal with them on my own, because how many of us sit there and examine ourselves objectively, like, you're crazy, Tamar, you do this. But if you meet somebody who then brings out things that you can relate to, then you have the opportunity to have those things rise up in you so you can address it. You know what I'm saying? So I think I was kind of looking at it like that. I think I always knew that we were puzzle pieces of each other. But that's a whole nother conversation too, because I don't necessarily believe you a half person until you meet your husband either. I don't believe that either. But I don't know. I definitely think I had those fairy tale thoughts too. I will say this. I definitely had the knight in shining armor, which is the biggest lie ever told. I believe them stories that I read. You know, I believe the movies that I watched. And that gave me a false identity of what a relationship would be like. Because even if you had that, it don't mean you're not gonna still struggle and go through all these different things. So I don't know. That's all I have to say about that. That's
Right.
a lot. Yeah.
Yes. It's interesting. It's funny because, you know, these conversations that we have always bring forth, I'm sorry. That was probably bad. Shouldn't have did that on
What was that, sunflower seeds?
camera. These conversations that are you funny. Oh, these conversations that we have always bring forth a deeper level. And it's kind of like, you know, well, while we're on this aspect, we can dig this out and talk about this also.
Right.
Going back to choosing, it's funny that you made mention of that because
Right.
ideally, I don't think I would want to be with a woman that was as dominating as a mother.
Right.
Situation. I don't think I would want that. I understood it, but I think she was working double time to try to provide a message. And not to say that I don't want to get it like my pops was, you know, never around, because I definitely, you know, had a strong situation with him and he would explain certain things to me. But as a kid, you know, it was her that was, you know, when I was outside getting into the little scuffles or whatever like that, and I would want to go in the house, she would send me back out there and be like, you know, either you gonna deal with them or I'm gonna deal with you type of thing. You know what I mean? It was her providing those little lessons for me. Whereas in my pops, you know, he was kind of he did it in his own way, which was kind of more so, you know, if I was crying, you know, is that really a reason for me to be expressing this much emotion? You know, kind of keep your emotions in check type of cat. And those are lessons that I definitely had to learn. You know what I mean? Because I wouldn't say I was a crybaby, but it was I had my moments. You know, but going back to picking a you know, the opposite sex or someone you want to be with, I think we take qualities that we see in multiple different people, and I'm gonna bring this full circle back to what Tamar was mentioning with that conversation we were having. The way I look at it now is I've found key qualities in different aspects of men and women that I kind of place and say, ideally, I want someone to be excellent in these qualities. Right. Assessing and looking at things that I know about myself, I kind of some things that I'm trying to face now, even I kind of equal and try to balance that out with those personalities that I say I would like to have a woman that is this, or I would like to have a woman that expresses this. In these times or these particular situations, I want her to be this way, which oddly enough kind of changes depending on what the situation is. So it's good, Shamar, you made an interesting point as far as expressing and communicating with each other, you know, what those things are. So once you start there, you say, hey, I don't like overly aggressiveness in the form of physical altercation. I wouldn't want a woman. I wouldn't want no woman that's going to, you know, be ready to punch somebody in the face.
Right, even you.
Yeah, you know what I mean? We don't want to deal with that. It's not something I'm looking for. But being able to express those gender roles, ideals on what gender roles are, Because I think culturally that changes. I think depending on society that changes. I think even if we look at the, us living here in America, I think that would change being, over here on the East Coast or being down south. Because I see I see a vast difference from women who are, let's say, from like a Mississippi um, state where it's a little more slower than women who are up here in, New York. And I know those rules are now starting to change now with the programming that's on TV, but that's why they.
Hey, wait. Where you at in New York?
I'm not in New York. I work in New York.
Where you at in New York?
I work in Staten Island.
Where you live at? Jersey?
That's an interesting question. For the most part, I'm in Jersey. I'm in Jersey a lot more than I'm in Staten.
Man, I be stuttering, man. I don't know, y'all. But no, I suppose to be coming out there though. That's why I asked. I'll talk to you about that.
Let's get in the inbox so we can open that conversation up a lot more. But
Yeah.
that's funny. But no, as it stands, just being out and about, you kind of it's a breath of fresh air, but it's also interesting. So the conversation, I said I was going to bring it back before I start rambling. Me and Tamar had a conversation. I seen a post on Facebook that said basically you attract your mirror image, right?
Right.
And based on your understanding of what a mirror image is, that might be true or false. I look at a mirror image as a person being a copy of yourself, right? And I don't think that's necessarily true. Long story short, I wrote a pretty long narrative on the post. I'm not going to bring all of that out here, but I'll say a short version of it. Ideally, I think we attract people who are people who display things that we don't see within ourselves. Kind of like that puzzle that Tamar was talking about. Or, quote unquote, the Bible refers to it as a woman being your helpmate. Right. So I look at things as in, looking at even some of the people that I've talked to and dated in situations where I attributed myself to be shy. A lot of early on, some of the people that I was interested in were more socialites, more out there, and wow, that's something I didn't see within myself. I think a lot of times we kind of pull in those qualities, whether it may be good or not good for us. We pull those qualities in because we yearn to have it, and that's what we want for ourselves. We go ahead and grab it the best way we can, then that creates sometimes toxic situations because just because you don't see it within yourself, you may have not found the right way to express it. Like my last relationship that I was in, the young lady was really quiet to herself, really reserved, and it created problems because I wasn't necessarily that. You know what I mean? So I think it's a lot of times we don't look for balance and we don't talk to find out what balance is, and we kind of move really quick. Right. And then we kind of see like, oh, this isn't a balancing situation. Because although they may be a socialite, what if they're too much of a socialite? What if they're too far out there? And it's like, whoa, I need you to chill out.
Right.
They're like, I am chill. You know what I mean? So without having that healthy aspect of communication and speaking, we kind of miss those points. And we can't, even going back to what gender roles are, we kind of forget that. So what if they out there being loud and carrying on, out there socializing? I don't want to say being loud, that paints a negative image. But what if they're more social and they feel as though, if they're out and they make a certain amount of money, or they provide in a certain way, that gives them that ability for them to do it, and you have no right to say say anything about it because they brought this to the table. And that can work both ways, male and females. That's why I'm trying to be as gender neutral as I can. But that's why having conversations on what you believe to be necessary and unnecessary from the start is a big thing. And once you are able to do that, you can kind of see, okay, this person likes to party and they make X amount of dollars and feel as though that they have the right to do it. I don't necessarily live life that way. I might not necessarily need to be in a relationship. But I think these are things that we learn from falling on our face.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody want to say something?
Who got nothing to say? I was just listening.
No, I find that interesting, the whole drawing people to you that show you who you want to be, but because you haven't investigated those hidden aspects of yourself, you end up getting the most extreme version of that. So that's deep to me. Like I feel that. So I think.
On the other hand,
Go ahead, my bad.
No, I'll just cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I think that was it. I was going to ramble, but
I want somebody like me.
You say you do want somebody like you?
That's it. Yes.
Exactly like you, Shema?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So you don't want to. What do you not like about people that? No, that don't sound right. What is troublesome about somebody that would not be like you?
Scary.
Oh, I'm gonna get in my car and come hug you. I told you that.
No, man.
What a kid.
This is a whole nother show. If you ask me that question, I would take up the whole 2 hours. I mean, you remember I wrote a book on this stuff.
Right.
I ain't talking about being identical or nothing like that, but I'm talking about as far as
I got you.
Just the way I am. I want someone like that. We can have 2 different careers, and we can have all that, but I'm just talking about the mindset, the character, the temperament, the discerning.
Can I
from a standpoint.
I got a question, but I don't want to.
Wait, I got a couple more to mention. Hold on, discerning. I ain't talking about like you got to know everything. I'm talking about just to discern matters. Like, okay, you know what? Maybe this is not what it is. Let me investigate this more before I jump, react, or act. So what I notice is a lot of people that I've encountered are opposite of that. But I know it's a lot of people in the world that is like that, though. Don't get me wrong. That's why I said I would love someone that is like that. So go ahead.
All right. So
there's more too, but I'm gonna stop right there. Though.
I got you. That's an interesting concept because I've always stated that I guess I'm opposite than you in this way. I don't want someone who's exactly like me. I want someone who embodies. Oh man, the signal is really bad. Are you guys still there? I need somebody to put like a hand up because
I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
We hear you.
I'm sorry. Hear you. Everything just froze on my computer just now. So
wait though, if you go though, I hope before I gotta really understand that though. I ain't saying identical. Yeah. I'm just talking about literally with the temperaments. You don't want nobody that's rowdy, do you? Right. You want somebody that could discern situations. Right.
Right.
You want somebody that has a sense of
I think
peacefulness. So we on the same level. Well, go ahead.
Yeah. I got you.
Okay, go ahead.
I got you.
Come on now.
I think because maybe okay. I might be overly critical of myself, right?
Maybe.
And I'm just going to use me as an example, right? So I can't say you're right or wrong in that. I'm just going off of the statement you made. I'm going off of my mental on it. I don't think I would want to date someone who's like me because the way I see myself, and this could just be a self-esteem thing, as I see myself as in having a long way to go as far as gaining understanding and knowledge of it, right? So, um, the question I was gonna ask, is it necessarily like you, or maybe how you personify yourself as, or the qualities that you might have?
Like me.
Because
But I'm
one of
not
the,
talking about. But see, you just brought up knowledge, though. I'm not talking about knowledge. I could be with somebody that's way smarter than me. I'm talking about character. I'm talking about
exactly,
temperament.
that's what
I'm
I'm
talking about
getting.
discernment. So I'm not. I ain't talking about knowledge. You brought up knowledge. You said you might not know everything. That's different from what I'm
No,
saying, though.
I mean
I ain't
like
talking
have a
about
long way
knowledge.
to go. I got you. I got you.
I
Well,
do too. I have a long way to
I'm
go.
talking
You feel me?
solely characteristics. I'm talking
Right.
solely
Okay.
character.
There you go.
I
Cool.
mean,
Cool.
okay. So let's make sure maybe my choice of wording is not the right one. So I'm talking character.
Because I'm gonna pick the words apart.
That's fine. That's fine. I mean, hold me to it, because then that's gonna help me become a better orator. Ah, yeah, I know. I knew that.
Okay, good word.
So so the reason why I ask that is because ideally, some people say, I've met people who feel a certain way about themselves as far as their characteristics and think they are the absolute bomb.
I'm
Mm.
not
Right?
though. I'm not. I don't think that about myself.
Right. So, and
Okay,
I
go
mean
ahead.
that might be you. That might be you. I'm not. I don't want to make this a me against you. I'm just talking about the mindset, because I
Hmm.
don't have the confidence to say that. Right. And I mean that's I honor that. I honor the answer that you gave. I just don't necessarily have the mindset. So I want to kind of dig deep into it. So like people who think that like their characteristics are all the way there. They're the meek, they humble, you know, they're not boastful, you know, they're not, quick to
Hmm.
wrath, quick to anger, you know what I mean? Boom. But when I see them, I'm like, yeah, that ain't necessarily true though. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
you are this way. You might not feel that about yourself. Not saying you. This is in general.
No, I get you.
Yeah. So you are this way. And I'm looking like, yeah, you feel, because I've had these conversations with brothers. Like, yo, I mean, I'm this, I'm that. Well, why ain't she this? And I'm like, you really think that about yourself? Oh, interesting. You know what I mean? So when you say that, I look at myself like, dang, you know, I have to work at becoming more humble. I have to work at becoming this. And if I found somebody who was, the female version of me, I might want to, you know, chop in the back of the neck, give her a hayah.
Oh my God.
But because that's sometimes
So
I get.
let me elaborate what I
Go
let
ahead.
me elaborate real quick what I mean. Let me elaborate what I mean. Like what I'm saying is, I'm not saying it from my standpoint. I'm saying it from a standpoint of, well, like people say to me, like I don't say these things about myself at all. Like literally, I lie to you not. But like because I know what you mean. Like, we'll say that, like, man, I'm not like this, and you'll be looking like, oh, you kind of are. You know what I'm saying? So I know what you mean when you say that. But like, if I was to get on your messenger right now, and I forwarded you every message from multiple people that know me personally, and in regards to what we're talking about, in regards to the temperament I'm talking about, in regards to the action reaction, in regards to the peaceful, these are things that were said, not me. But I prefer having that because I see we it's bad out here, man.
Yeah.
It's like every person that I've dealt with is like that. Not everyone, but majority.
Right.
And I said, and it got to the point where it's like, you know what, man. So when we just got into that question she asked, or whoever, which one of y'all asked, I really would. I
Mm.
I would. As
So,
far as those things I'm speaking of, I ain't talking about like, if you might be greater in finance than me, heck yeah, I need you in my life. You might be smarter than me. You might have know 5, 6 languages. Heck yeah, I want you in my life. But if you have all those, but your character always talking about somebody, cursing somebody out, acting, snapping all the time, using profanity like crazy. I got children around. I want somebody like me in regards that I don't use profanity. I haven't cursed in years. You know what I'm saying? I don't. If there's children around, I hold my peace. I don't. I'm chill.
Right.
I'm just really chill. I don't, you know what I'm saying? So that's what I mean. And it's not me saying it. I finally just this year started saying stuff about myself now. I never used to, even with my music, like people say, man, your music real good. I'm like, oh, thanks, man. This year, I'm 30, about to be 35. I'm just starting to say, you know what? I am really good musically. It ain't a lot of people that could touch me on the writing, the freestyling, even the rapping if I want to do it. I never used to do that. I'm now finally talking about myself, finally starting to talk about myself.
That's because you're getting older. Welcome to the old side. We don't care. We don't care about what nobody got to say.
So I got a question. Steering this back into gender stereotyping and gender roles.
Stereotype.
Yep.
Right? Right. Steering us back that direction because we kind of hopped on a tangent a little bit. So we gonna turn this on back. We're gonna whip it on back. This is my question, and I want both of you guys to answer it if you can. What roles, especially you, Tamar, since you're representing the woman aspect.
Hey, ladies.
Exactly. So I need you to give it on up for them. You to give it on up for them. So what I want to know is what are the ideal roles for men and women as far as how we view culture, living in society today, that the society that we live in today.
Right.
What is the, I don't want to say pinnacle because I know it's situational, but maybe from personalized to your standards, what do you feel man and woman should be, should stand for, should portray?
Right. So I can only speak from bare minimums because I do believe in when it's time to go to war, I'm gonna be at war too. I'm not gonna be quiet. So say that about myself. I'm not a passive woman in when it comes to not passive. I'm not gonna keep saying it. Okay. But I would say as far as bare minimum, I would say that the bare minimum would be for a woman, and I'm not gonna say nothing. I'm not gonna give the example, but there was an example yesterday. This is why the unfollow button is good on Facebook. So you won't be vexing your spirit. But a woman should be classy, and I know classy is a contextual thing because what's classy in one culture may not be classy somewhere else. But a woman should have some kind of integrity. Both of them should have some kind of integrity, some sort of chill, like you said, Shamal. Like she should know when to chill.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
She should. Oh, I wasn't done.
I'm sorry.
No, this is cool. She should know when to chill. She should have a voice. Every woman should have a voice. I don't believe in that you a woman be quiet. So she should have a voice, and I think that and her class will balance when she uses her voice. So those are the same thing, both sides. And she should be willing to be protected. Those are three things. I'm not gonna go on a rant. Three things. For the man, he should be apt to protect. I think that, like I said earlier, when it comes to body types, the man should be having a woman when it's time for a fight. Like that don't even make sense to me. The man should be willing to listen to his partner because she might have different perspective. Just even if you say that we ain't doing that, at least listen and consider. And then he should I don't know what else. I don't know. That's all I got for now.
Okay. Shema?
What's the question again, man? You know, I gotta make sure I get the right question so I can answer it
properly. I hope I can say it the same way.
Like the bare minimum, like what's the bare minimum that a man and a woman should have? Because we thinking about stereotypes, but what are some things that should absolutely be bottom level stuff with both genders, right?
Mhm.
As in,
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
I like the way you said
here's
it.
my answer. The bare minimum: balance,
right.
wisdom, um, patience.
Patience. That's good. That's good.
Those my only three I'm gonna give.
Okay.
Loyalty too. But if you have wisdom, then but I try to attach as much as I can to it. So I put loyalty in. Those four, man.
Good.
That's it for me.
So
I don't even know if I answered it properly, but that's my answers.
I got you. I got you. So compounding off of that question, you know, we all seen it on Facebook. Shema, I know you're not on Facebook anymore, but
I'm back on now.
oh, okay. You just said the.
I only came on to share the music. You probably ain't even heard the song yet, man. I don't
I
think.
did
It's a
hear. I
good
like the
song,
song.
by the way.
Thank you,
No,
thank you.
I had wanted to ask you who you was talking about, but I didn't want to get into business. But
Oh
anyway,
my
go
God.
ahead, Isaiah.
yeah. Actually, Shema, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this. I know we live. I probably should say it off
Uh
live.
oh.
But yeah. You was the butt of a joke that I made. But no, it was a good song. The song was good. I like the song. But you were the butt of a joke. I said, what did I say? I was like, oh, he done went on vacation. Found some.
Basically, came back
Oh
good.
no.
Came back
Uh,
straight.
Man,
but
come on, man.
but
Y'all know songwriters got to make it believable, man.
I
Inspiration.
got you.
It is believable though,
It
whatever's going on.
is. It was. It was a good song. So yes, I did. Yes, I did hear the song. That's how I knew you
Appreciate
was
it,
back
boss.
on Facebook. But I thought you just came
Hmm.
and drop it and disappear again. But
Yeah, I did, and I came back and I shared the our this right here to let people
right.
know. But go
I
ahead.
got you. But
I'm leaving again soon though.
I'm
Out
gone.
of here.
I am gone. I got you. But
Hmm.
my compounded question. I'm gonna set it up with an example first. So a few weeks ago there was that picture going around as far as we need to get back to women, and it was like a woman cooking and cleaning and mopping the floors, something like that, right? Now,
Uh-oh.
when we, yeah, I had to do it. When we're dealing with, and this is for both of y'all to answer too. When we're dealing with, I know you said balance, so that's kind of like an overarching position, but I
Hmm.
kind of want you to get a little more in there. I'm gonna make you hold this shovel and dig. Um,
Hey.
so we seen that picture, and I know me personally, I think when now a lot of times when we speak about gender specific roles, especially in the household, these are things that we attribute them to. Actually, I know earlier we kind of already expressed that it's more of a mental aspect behind it, and those actions can be done by both parties, right? So we already know the answer, but I want you guys to kind of make that plain. How do you feel as far as situational things like that? Ideally, should that be on a man or a woman? How should that play out inside of the household, or even when dating?
What specifically you mean though? As far as like what? Anything in general?
like
Uh,
like the picture. Okay, so if I can
I mean, I
interpret.
know the picture, right? Like you basically, that's for me. My answer is this: it's balance. It's kind of like basketball team. You got a point guard, you got a shooting guard, you got a small forward. They do specific things. So
mhm.
when I say balance, it could go for any household, especially in today's society. But you should have set responsibilities for each other. That's balancing out
Oh, okay, I
and
guess.
that's balancing everything out for one another. That's what I meant. And that's as specific I could be. Like as far as you
Right.
all sit down. Hey, you know what? I'm gonna take care of this. I'm gonna take care of the whole the either the rent if you stay in an apartment, the mortgage if you stay in the house. You just take care of the little small things here and then perhaps this and then
Right.
like
Right.
that
Right.
type of balance.
Basically, you have that conversation to reach a standpoint of what's
Yeah.
conducive for your household, y'all living situation, et cetera, et
Yes,
cetera.
sir. Yes,
Right.
sir.
Understood. Tim,
So yeah, I'm actually glad you said that, Shema, about having a conversation in advance because uh, that's the whole point. I think that's the solution because we gotta get back to the solution. Is
mm,
that the solution would be that it's nothing necessarily wrong with those, I guess, natural inclinations to do certain things, because you have differences that exist. So those differences should be capitalized on when you're talking about a union. But what they look like in the households will probably be different, and to be clear about it, you know what I'm saying, up front. And because I don't mind cleaning. In fact, I enjoy cleaning. Hello. But I also don't mind putting together a bookshelf. You know what I'm
What's
saying?
that on your wall over there? What's that on your wall right there, though? No, I'm playing.
Oh. I'm not putting that picture up. Stop.
I'm messing with you.
That was a good one.
You said something she enjoyed cleaning. I'm like, what's that on your wall, though? Mm-hmm. Ain't nothing on your wall, Tamar. I'm playing.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about that picture back there that I never hung up. I'm sorry. Yeah, but
I was talking about the cleaning.
Oh, no. Oh, no, my bad. No, yeah. But I'm just saying,
just
like,
ruin my joke.
Those stereotypical roles are not necessarily problematic, because somebody got to do those things. But I agree with you, Shema. I think that when the woman can't do it, the man should step in. And if he don't know how to do something, she should better step in, and it shouldn't be no, this is a man's job, or this is what. And I think that's what a problem happens, because I think that you end up stifling people's gifts and making your job worse. So if these stereotypes exist in a rigid form, then what happens when you physically can't do them anymore? Do the whole world just fall apart just because you ain't, you know what I'm saying? Like, it don't even make sense long term when it comes to the household.
I want to give a real quick example. I got an example real quick. Like, my cousin, they married. The wife could cook, right? But my cousin throws down. The husband throws down. So he will be one of the main one to cook. But the role today, they say the woman's supposed to.
Right.
I think it should be. I think that we should. You sit down, you talk, and you speak on your strengths. You know, in regards to cooking and cleaning. One might be more thorough of a cleaner. It's men today that's more thorough as a cleaner, because we know women are more general. Well, we are told and shown that they're more generally taught or naturally gifted in cleaning more than men.
Right.
But it is an exception to the rule. So I think when you have that conversation in the beginning on what you all are, your gifts are, your strengths are, then you all can better come together and say, hey, you know, well, I'll take on this majority of the time. Then you can help out, you know, sometimes if you want to, things like that. So that's what I mean by balance. Balance is not always pushing it on the other person all the time. Now, if we talking about changing car tires and stuff like that, you know, then okay, you know, the man will go ahead and do that, because it's something like, I mean, I know women that do it though. You know what I'm saying? But that's something that's like that goes back into masculinity and femininity.
Exactly.
Femininity, whatever. It's like, you know, men have both, but the majority of how their function should be in a masculine state, because that's just what it is. You know, I don't know why, other than nature, but that's just what it is. And that's what I mean as far as like when you got the balance part, you know, this person might be a natural cooker, but you know, let him go ahead and do this mostly, but I step in and do my part sometimes.
I do the sides and you can do the meat. You do the meat, so I do the sides.
There you go. Okay. And that's all I got.
Yeah, you guys both did a good job answering it. So I feel as though that's what's up.
Yeah.
All right, we got some closing remarks on it, or do you got another one we wanted to touch on?
No, I'm pretty much done.
I was talking to Tamar.
That's the fourth time this week I got caught with that same joke. Apparently, I'm always answering when I ain't supposed to do. Horrible. All right.
No, I really enjoyed the conversation. It was good. I think that I like how we dug into the negative aspects of it, and not just leaving it on this concept of toxic masculinity as if women don't have toxic femininity or have things that's wrong with us. I appreciated that, but definitely I hope the conversation sparks conversations in people's homes, and that we can get the conversations out of the corner, whispering, and more into the public discourse, however that happened. Because talking about it and not doing nothing about it is you just wasted the whole 10 minutes and breath that you can't never recoup on issues that can't be resolved. You know what I'm saying? We all at least talk about it and try to come to some kind of agreement. So that's all I wanted to say.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. All right. Closing remarks for me. A few things that I actually noticed. I love the fact that we threw these definitions out there and kind of discussed everything, bringing it to the forefront of people's minds and, allowing them to personally go ahead and kind of regulate and check themselves. I also like the fact, and I got to go back to the gender stereotypes definition, because it's a key feature in there that I think we all hit on in various parts of this discussion, and it's the latter half. And this could be in both negative, hostile, and peaceful situations. But when gender stereotypes begin to become harmful, when they limit women's or men's capacity to do whatever they have to do. So as in what you guys are talking about, balance, as far as, like, let's say cleaning or household chores or something like that, when you're limiting that other person from being themselves, being the best aspects of themselves, that's harmful. But there are ideal roles that we say, socially, that we say women would fit more of versus men would fit more of. Ideally, they say, when it comes to fighting, as far as, outside or something like that, that's a masculine thing, or when they say...
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
I know, right? I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, no.
Man, boy, women fight more than men outside.
Exactly,
now,
like dudes.
That is true. Exactly what you just said, Tamar. They like dudes, meaning that's a masculine attribute or something that we identify with men that we now see kind of mold into women.
Right.
I guess society will kind of set what the social norm is, but ideally, when we're using these things to kind of stifle that person from being their better self, whether it's a man or a woman, that's when we're in hostile, negative zones, and we kind of need to move back from that. So I guess identifying when that's happening, husbands, wives, identifying when that's happening, sitting down and having a mature discussion about it would be, I guess, the solution to navigate away from, and finding out what those are. So I like the fact how, although we expressed what those definitions were, we kind of hit all aspects of how those definitions could be utilized. And Tamar, as you said, bringing this discussion out in the open, so people can kind of see it and kind of touch it, feel it, and deal with it. So I'm gonna yield there and let you guys take over. And thanks again for having me on.
No problem. Thank you for joining.
Appreciate it. Only thing I'm gonna say is this: to avoid toxic masculinity and femininity, self-preservation, divine conscience. That's it. Go back to the organic way of the nature. Look at the animals.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Look how they operate. Look how they deal with each other. And that's it. With that, I yield.
Yeah, no, that's what's up. We do gotta pay attention to these animals. Speaking of animals, them animals probably in my backyard. They probably push them out the nest by now. But we'll be back in a couple of weeks. If you all have any topics to discuss, let us know. We're always available. I mean, at least the Facebook page is. You can inbox the Facebook page, Love Language, the Roundtable, with suggestions. If not, we're gonna be back in a couple of weeks or next week. I don't know. Forget. We'll be in tune shortly. So anyway, pray everybody has a good weekend. Blah blah blah. Love y'all.
Shalom.
Shalom.